In this episode, we're taking a look at the armies of Great Britain, their special rules, some of their fancier units. Let's check it out.
Welcome to Trident Wargaming, a podcast dedicated to all aspects of tabletop wargaming. Your hosts are Bill and Andy.
Hey guys, welcome to Trident Wargaming, episode number 40. Today we got some bolt action talk for you. I'm your host Andy, and with me I have Jason and Dusty once again. Welcome to the show again, guys.
Hello.
Howdy.
You guys doing pretty good? Keeping busy?
Yeah, I'm working my bee off.
I hear that. Been working a lot myself too, but always some time for hobby time, you know? So,
Oh yeah.
So yeah, today's episode, going to be talking about the Army of Great Britain. We're going to go through the book a little bit and kind of their special rules, nation rules, and some of their specific units that are kind of slightly, possibly different than other armies. And then we're just going to kind of go through and what's new with our hobby world and what we're working on, and kind of look at different units and how they fit into making armies and making strong armies compared to tournament or competitive, compared to like narrative or historical, that kind of idea. So both Jason and Dusty play some different lists for Great Britain and or the Commonwealth units and whatnot. So it'll be pretty good for them to kind of share their thoughts and go from that. I know myself, I haven't been able to play them yet, but I have picked up a fair bit. So hopefully in the future, maybe next year, I'll get them going. So maybe the Eighth Army will get out there and do some desert rat patrols,
Sweet.
So what's new with you guys for hobby? What you guys been up to? What you been working on?
Well, I've been nerding it up with some black powder.
Mm-hmm.
I completely finished my first brigade for my American Civil War Army.
Nice.
And a unit of cavalry for them. And I have built my second brigade and 6 more artillery pieces for them for some reason. And they're primed, so I just have to paint those. And I've been working on Peninsular War French army for Napoleonics.
Nice.
At 28 millimeters also.
Yeah, and for those guys that have looked in the black powder and stuff, me and Jason have just kind of jumped into it, so we're eventually going to be throwing some battles out as well, and it's another Warlord Games system. So, and any of you that have played it, you'll know what we're talking about. So, but no, that's pretty cool. And how about yourself, Dusty?
That sounds much more exciting than I've been up to.
Oh.
But I've got myself some early Christmas presents from Rubicon Models. Picked up a few more LVT4 Buffaloes and a couple of the small WC-52 trucks. So I've been working on building those for my Marines, so I can have a few more transport options.
Very nice.
And tow some artillery and whatnot.
Very nice. You'll have.
And then bounce back and forth. I also got myself a box of the new Inter-Allied Commandos. So open that box up and try and figure out how I'm going to build those units. So
yeah, it's a pretty nice kit. I did the unboxing for that kit, and I was quite pleased how they they churn them out. So be a lot of I think a lot of guys probably using that kit, making some pretty cool armies. So.
I'm loving their newer plastics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in love with them. Right back to the British paratrooper box.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And up especially. Right? British paratrooper, Winter Germans.
Even the new Canadian British
Canadians.
box. Yeah.
These Commandos look great. Like really, really impressed. They're super models.
Yeah, they've upped their game. So.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys looked at that video I linked earlier today on the messenger there.
I did. Yeah, I went down the rabbit hole with the the Warlord Games Day talks or whatever.
Yeah, because I think Stoller there was talking about kind of their kits and revamping and improving their kits and whatnot. So, and we've kind of realized and witnessed that just with them redoing some of the kits and making them a lot better, right? So hopefully I think that's probably the direction that they will be going in the future, just from the sounds of that chat that he had.
Yeah.
So hopefully maybe we'll see some stuff, right? I would be excited if they did the plastic French for Warlord Games. I do have, I believe it's War Games Atlantic. Their set is coming in. I had ordered it on the last episode of our Bolt Action series here. So I'll be doing an unboxing of that when it comes in. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they scale up to what I have right now, the pewter forces. So
it's interesting to see. As of late, it seems like Wargames Atlantic has been releasing on par the same miniatures as Warlord Games. They seem to be figuring out what's upcoming, and because I know they released their own Partisans.
Yeah.
And I believe the Italians come out at the same time, or similar times, I think, as well. So.
Yeah, that's very true.
Makes sense. That maybe feeding off the advertising of one,
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's
off
that,
of
and
a much bigger company.
I mean, there's that, but there's also the fact that, and I've heard this from multiple people, that when these campaign and army books and whatnot get published by Osprey, they publish it and they release it to pretty much their distributors right away. So like we seen the covers of the new campaign, the Soft Underbelly. We seen that, like, I don't know, maybe 10 months ago. And it was the same thing with the last 3 campaign books as well. So easily able to get heads up from that. Plus I'm sure there's other sources, and I'm sure they're probably talking with each other too, right? So but hey, more selection, more miniatures, cool.
I'm all for it.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and War Games Atlantic, they have different ranges for different games as well. So but it's pretty good as long as you have options, and the kits are pretty decent, and some of the current guys who are jumping into the games here locally, they're been a little spoiled with like plastic kits from like Games Workshop and whatnot, but it's nice to see Warlord going that direction, and in other companies as well. So that's good.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, I know I'll be watching your War Games Atlantic unboxing because I want those Partisans.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see the scale difference because I already have a fair amount of Partisans, but I would like to introduce some more for variety more than anything, more than numbers.
Yeah, and their kits are on par with Warlord Games as well. Like the amount that you get in their boxes, I think it's like 30 guys as well.
Yeah, and from the pictures, the quality looks good too. So
Yeah.
yeah, for me, for my personal needs, it'll be
Hmm.
does the scale match?
Mhm.
Because I don't
Yeah,
mind
nothing.
different scales in different armies. Like if I was to do a separate army with just those models, but I don't want different scales within the same force.
Nothing sets off my OCD more than scale inaccuracies. So,
Yeah, yeah. And a little bit isn't bad because, not everybody is exactly the same height. But when it's, when their heads are significantly smaller and their hands and their,
Yeah, and you
it
find
just
that
feels weird. Yeah.
you find that sometimes with the pewters in plastics. I don't know if you guys
Mhm.
noticed that, but like I noticed that with the Japanese big starter set. Their plastics were a little bit bigger than like the pewter guys, right? So it was kind of like, damn it, I wish that didn't happen, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But
Well, and you're looking at also like Warlord games with the heroic 32 mil, or versus classic actual scale 156 28 mil figures from other companies. Like they just
mhm.
don't always match up very well.
Yeah, and then and even like I think there was one of our players a while back. I think he was using I think it was the Eighth Army and Perry miniatures,
Yep.
So there's a big difference.
and they're like more realistic scale, kind of true
Yeah.
scale or whatever compared to
Mhm.
heroic. So, but
Which I think the Perrys look great too. I just don't want to personally. I don't want to mix them.
mhm.
I go kind of all of one or the other, but
I hear you. I hear you.
that's just silliness, really.
But
But it's my silliness, damn it.
right on, right on. Well, it's good to hear you guys are continuously working on stuff too. You know me. I'm always working on something as well. Right now, it's more of the sci-fi stuff. So, um, just a lot of AK enamel washing and removing right now. So nothing too fun, but it'll look good in the end.
Nice.
I do have some Germans that I'm still trying to get going and complete. I just ended up like basing um, my two MMG teams with like the bricks and stuff, and like putting some wood. You know, giving them looking like they've taken up positions with some cover, and just did that, and then
Little dynamic basing.
yeah, and then I ordered two of the Stugs with the light howitzers on them because I
Oh,
didn't.
geez, sweet.
Yeah, I didn't have them, so that, and then there's an anti-tank gun that I have to kind of cobble together because they don't make a winter German one as of yet, but they do make a regular
Yeah.
here army one. So using the crew from some of the other
From
snow
the
kits.
Africa Corps kit, you can.
Yeah. Sun hats and Stalingrad. Woohoo! You know?
Sun hats and shorts and no shirt and put them out in the.
There you
Come
go.
on, sometimes it gets really hot loading and firing those guns a lot. So
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. But yeah, getting this rolling here. So, armies of Great Britain. I guess we can start off with going over maybe their nation rules. They're a bit different than most other armies because there's actually some choice selections that you can make, right?
Yeah.
So,
First off, you get a free artillery observer,
mhm,
which
that's
is amazing.
that's big.
It's big, and they've helped a lot. I mean, it's a one shot kind of deal, and you can get taken out by a sniper, and all this and that, but it's free.
Yep.
B, that barrage can be a game winner. It has in the past won me games. More often than not, it causes a couple of pins if it hits anything.
The bombardment is what you're talking about, or the artillery support from the actual
the artillery support from the foo.
Okay. Yep.
Often you're not going to get a direct hit. You'll get a couple of pins. Maybe you'll kill a guy or two. But
it's free.
Yeah, and it's free, so you can't complain.
And 100 points there.
Yeah, 100 points for free. And once that guy does his mission, once he calls in that support, you got a guy that can claim objectives. Dustin was talking about putting him in a otter so he can have access to a machine gun and rip around, taking dudes out, capturing those objectives. And people don't think about them after they fire. Most people forget about them.
That's true. They just kind of hunker down in a building or something, and that's it, right? Or they're just casualty, just randomly. Oh, there's a target. Here's a kill point. Let me get him. Right.
And they're great to go for, for some cheap kills, especially in games where you're maybe playing kill points.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the scenario, but one of them has the points value of the units you destroy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And his points value is 0. So
yeah, that's like the
not that bad to risk.
There's a couple armies that have that same thing. The French and the Russians, they have that too. The free
artillery, free squad.
Yeah, it's like you guys said, 100 points. It's free. He can be super effective with his ability, calling down that artillery. And there was another thing too that I was reading as well, and you can't forget this, it's another order dice.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that goes to your pool, and you can use that. You can tactically use him to delay things, delay a draw, or force, the other guy to use his dice up before you want to activate, a critical unit,
Yeah, exactly.
So,
again, that might be a detriment if you're playing a dice limit tournament or something, where you're pushing close to the limit, and you have other stuff you want. Of course, you're still going to take the free guy, but maybe it knocks the thing out. But yeah, definitely in most games, most average games, that extra dice is definitely helpful.
Yeah, and the one note with him is, and of course, in most of your armies, he'll be available. But if the army selector doesn't actually have him, you don't get him, right? So just to keep that in mind. But overall, can't complain, So they also have their special rule, the army special rule of bombardment.
Yeah.
And I've been on the receiving end of this one many times, just when prep bombardment happens, right? So pretty much you're rolling
2 dice.
2 dice and choosing the best result.
Yeah.
So,
which really you're going for a 6.
Yeah, you want that heavy howitzer hit for sure.
Yeah, you hit a squad, you're going to squish one guy. That's not that crazy. But if you hit that vehicle or that officer,
sniper team.
yeah. Yeah, team
Well,
weapon.
vehicle, yeah, like you said. I mean, and that's happened to me. I don't know how many times I've lost my commander, or you've knocked out my transport, and not only have you destroyed my transport, but you've caused damage onto the squad that's inside of it.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
oh, you knocked out my tank. Like, ugh, like beginning of the game, and this has already happened. It kind of puts you, on the back foot of, damn it,
Yeah. Yeah,
But
it demoralizes the enemy right from the start. Which maybe, I mean, it is a game. Maybe demoralizing the opponent isn't the friendliest way to play.
no, but it's part of playing that army,
Part
right?
of the game. Yeah,
And
it, it it can be devastating. Generally, prep bombardments are decals a couple pins. Most units don't do a whole lot in the first round anyway. They're just waiting for something to get in range. So it's not a big detriment. They'll use a rally instead of an ambush dice, maybe, or
yeah, and that's a total, like, after having the experience and playing a fair bit, and I've done this a gazillion times, is like, when we're both firing prep bombardment at each other in the first round, and like almost every one of my units has pins. It's a pretty simple decision of what to do, is just
yeah,
start rallying, because if you don't, it's going to cause you so many problems in the next few rounds.
yeah.
That
You want to rally before you got them up in your face.
Yeah. So, and I've seen guys actually try to risk giving them movement orders or advance orders or run stuff like that, and they just fail. Or
Yeah, I'm a huge
foobar.
idiot for that. I do that all the time. I'm an
So,
idiot every time. I'm like, why did I do that?
but
But
no, it's a good one. Like, the chances, right? You just improve, and then more than likely you're going to be putting 2 pins on people all the time, right? So,
yeah, yeah.
then going forward, we do have their national characteristics, and this one is an interesting one, and yet fairly different than other armies, and it gives a little bit of, however we want to build your army, a bit of flair, and just a little bit of different abilities, I guess. So, it's pretty much basically some bonus rules that the fighting men of the armies of the Commonwealth and whatnot get, and instead of them, specifically saying, okay, well, Canadians get this or Australians get this, or who's the better fighters, this and that. They've got some standard ones here that you're allowed to pick, for your army, right? And we can go through them here, and like, we have up and Atom. So I know Dusty and Jason here, they tend to use a few of these. I know Vengeance is one of the ones that
Dustin uses.
That's my go-to.
So yeah, well, okay, go ahead with that one, Dust. Let's go with that one first. And
Yeah, sure. Well, this one's so any regular or veteran unit that has one or more pin markers can immediately test to lose 1 pin marker if there are enemy within 12 inches before you give them an order. So on a 4, 5, 6, it's passed and you lose 1 pin marker. If you fail, you just go along with your test as is. I find this one is excellent for any troops, basically. But when you're kind of a forward operating player and you like to get into those close quarters or assaults and things, and like to get closer with, like I use a lot of SAS and veteran units with lots of SMGs. So you got to get really close, and it really helps you eliminate that. Not so much the leadership, because you're going to pass those tests to move. It really helps you with negatives to your shooting. That 3 to a 4 to a 5 because you've got a couple of pin markers or you're in long range, and then suddenly you're within 12 inches. Okay, well, I'm gonna roll this. I lose a pin marker. That means I'm back to hitting on 4s or 3s when you're up close to the enemy. So it really helps.
No doubt, and especially like your army's very mobile. So you literally are pretty much working that close to the enemy.
Yep.
So
And you can't take that turn to rally.
no.
That kills you.
No, yeah, you need it. You need to operate that turn. So, and I mean, if you do have those 3 or 4 pins on you because you took a hard turn, well, this is an automatic pin you can take away, and then you get to test, and you could lose another pin after you pass your test. So you could do 2 pins in a turn, which really helps you out when you're that close to the enemy.
No, that's very valid. That's very good point with that. So yeah, it's take advantage of it, right? Like if you're that close, hell yeah. That's pretty good. And Jason, the one that you use, which one's the one that you use?
With my airborne army before the new list, I was using blood curdling charge, and that one doesn't allow the enemy to do a what do you call it? A stand and shoot reaction.
Right.
When I charge at them, especially since that's my I need to get into the fight and I F them up. They're not winning the fight. So I get in and I hit them and I hit their vehicles and in close combat because I have a Piat.
Yeah.
And that's usually all I really get for anti-tank. So everybody has anti-tank grenades, and that's how I have to deal with vehicles. Besides, avoiding them or whatever. But if I have to, that's what I do is get in there. So to have them not be able to shoot at me as a response allows me to hoof it and get in there quick without dinking around and waiting for the perfect opportunity or having to take those shots at me and leave me hurt before the fight.
No, for sure. And it's funny, like looking at both of these, the Vengeance and Blood Curdling Charge, and especially looking at your guys' armies, because you both are actually mobile, quite mobile. Being, a veteran army, like these are really good special rules for that.
Yeah.
Right? And like this one here, the Blood Curdling Charge, I mean, again, it's just another saving grace for those vets of that smaller squad.
Yeah.
And if you're going in there with vets, more than likely you're probably equipped with SMGs, right? You're going to be tough as nails because you are that toughness, the winning you on 5s. But it's the tough fighter ability as well that's going to really do some work for you.
Yeah, in combat, I get that basically 0.5 extra attack. If you count tough fighter, right? An extra attack for every successful hit, and that 5 in order to wound me generally means, bad luck dice aside, that I should win most of the combats I engage in. Now, don't get me wrong, I have terrible luck sometimes, and that goes the other way. But
that's fair. And the thing that's neat too is you could essentially reverse these for your guys' armies. You know what I mean? And they would still probably work quite well.
Oh yeah.
Well, even the up and Atom, you can make an assault without having to take a test. So if you got
Yeah.
pins on you, you could use that. I assume that's probably the same if you're assaulting a tank without grenades.
So that was one thing I was
yeah.
going to bring up that I liked about that one is the up and atom, because so it's literally any order given to make an assault. So I mean, when you're making an assault, you're giving them that run order anyways, right? And
Yeah.
it doesn't specifically say an assault against an infantry unit. So yeah, like if you can drop something beside a tank, get up to the tank line and do that, easy peasy. No test needed, right?
Yeah.
So that's a pretty cool one. And like Dusty was saying, with the pins, if you got multiple pins, you just go.
Yeah.
So again, another good one. I actually really like that one, and I think I would probably try to utilize that, especially with some of the heavier armored lists that we encounter. That'd be fun to play around with some of the units in the army book. And then we have two more, and I believe they're similar, but one's for combat and the other one's for shooting. So we have tough as boots, and pretty much you're getting bonus attack dice when fighting in close quarters for every 3 men fighting in combat.
Yeah.
You'll roll 1 extra dice.
Yeah. So most units are 10 guys.
Mm-hmm.
So you're probably going to get 3 extra dice.
Yeah,
but
if they're full strength, yeah.
If they're full strength, and it's at the time they make the charge is where you count it, right? So if you start out with 10, that's great. But if you take a couple casualties and go down to 8, then you're only getting 2 extra dice. Rapid fire might be a little better because you can start using that quicker before you start getting whittled down. It's the same thing essentially, only for shooting.
Yeah.
1 extra dice for every 3 guys you have. But again, that's going to be generally a 10-man squad. So you're going to get 3 extra dice.
That's only rifles, though, too. So.
And it's only rifles, yeah.
Rifles.
So I don't know if that counts for much. I guess if you think about it, it's basically if it's an extra like an LMG maybe, But
yeah, maybe you don't pay the 20 points for an LMG and you take a couple extra rifles.
Yeah, maybe that's a way to get in a little extra that way. So I don't know. I think I'm more on board with the rapid fire than the tough as boots. So I just don't think tough as boots is going to get you much.
So, and like, if you guys were going to, let's say, a tournament, and you're building some strong lists to play in these terms, ultimately, like, let's say the top 2, would you even kind of look at, like, what would you kind of think would be your top 2 to take for a tournament, or maybe the strongest ones out of this, you'd think?
For me, blood curdling charge and vengeance, without a doubt. And everything else is kind of, then it goes to up and atom, and then the rapid fire and tough as boots would be last for sure.
I think I'd have to agree with that order for tournament purposes.
Yeah. The ability to take off a free, like for free, essentially, pin is huge, and to not get like my list was more about getting into combat. Dustin's list was more about getting in there and shooting the crap out of them. So for him, the pins were more important than they are to me. But for me, being able to get there, to not have to worry about the shooting, that free round of shooting they can do, essentially, at me.
Right.
But yeah, those 2 for sure are by far the best.
And I guess the same time, I'd kind of look at this as what timeline, what era you're running, if you're doing early or mid or late. Because like when I was looking through the units, the early war units, there is no like submachine guns in their units. So
Yeah.
you know, maybe rapid fire has a bit more value in the early war lists.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have more rifles then, yeah.
So it's stuff like that you just kind of gotta examine and take a look. And I mean, you guys know me, I tend to do a lot of early war armies as well. But yeah, they can obviously be applied to, you know, all the armies that you play with or build or you know, design, across from this book to all the, of course, the other campaign books and theater selectors and whatnot. So but overall, I mean, national rules pretty good, I would say, compared to most armies, and different. So you can have a lot of fun with that. You can design your what kind of army you would, you know, want to make. You know, be it Chindits or Gurkhas or, you know, a British expeditionary force or Canadians, all that stuff, right? Airborne.
Well, these national characteristics are just the ones that come with a generic reinforced platoon. When you get into like Gurkhas or Canadians, they're gonna have their own additional special rules just for their
That's
units.
right. That's right. Yeah, because I know the Canadians just got one too, right? With when they're fighting against the SS and stuff.
Yeah, they have hatred against the SS, and they have oh, geez, Louise.
Yeah, I can't even remember which one they have.
Dogged is the next one. So dogged, you could upgrade your units to stubborn for 1 point per man.
Yeah, which
you
is
can be
huge.
Inexperienced can be green for 1 point per man.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool. Like they've really put a number on just bringing out different rules like that for the different armies, and just allows you to build stuff like that for whatever you want to do, really.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest strengths in the book too, is that it's super versatile.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe more so than many of the others, just because you also have the Commonwealth. So flavor-wise, I mean, you got, Canada, Great Britain, Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, whatever, right? And within there, you got airborne and Marines and Commandos.
Yeah, and you even have Home Guard.
Home Guard, regular infantry.
If you want an entire army of ladies auxiliary, you can do it.
Yeah. You can do it.
No,
yeah, so flavor-wise, they're stacked.
Yeah, there's a lot, but you also got to realize that, you know, they were all over the world, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So you had the European theater, you had African, theater there, you had in the Pacific, right, in Asia. They're just all over the place. So definitely lots of options and choices to choose from. And then the book itself, like, just going through the infantry, of course everybody has the inexperienced infantry and the veteran infantry and all that stuff. But when you start looking at some of the specific units for the British, you like I said, you got the Chindit and the Commandos and the Gurkha, and they all have their own little special rules as well, right? Paratroopers, you know. There's a lot of outflanking units that I've noticed.
Yeah, Dustin knows about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't like most of my game. I'd probably say 98% of my games haven't really seen that happen, right? The outflanking. But going through this book, if you wanted to build a force, and like for example, the Chindit section, they have this special rule called behind enemy lines. So when they outflank, you know, they ignore a -1 to their order test for coming onto the table.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty big. And then on top of that, they get fire and maneuver, so they don't actually suffer a -1 hit penalty for moving and shooting. Right? So it's an interesting combination because that's literally what they're doing. They're creeping up the line, moving up, doing their business, and you know they're veterans, rifles, submachine guns, light machine guns. It's a pretty good unit. I can see why they were used fairly well in some stronger lists and whatnot for tournaments and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you have another one of their units is the Gurkha section, and these are your like close combat guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they don't mess about.
No, they don't. Again, they're veterans, and they have tough fighters, and they have scary blighters. So pretty much, they are wielding these huge blades.
Kukris.
Yep. And this is a very strong ability because the enemy unit that it's fighting halves its total number of attacks against the Gurkhas, rounding up.
Which is huge. That's nearly impossible to overcome.
Yeah.
Like you really need bad dice rolls on the Gurkha's side to overcome that.
Mm-hmm. And then you add in whatever characteristic you want there for your if you want that free assault or you want those extra dice, they get that national characteristic too.
Yeah, exactly. So good combinations. You can fool around with them, try them out. Same thing with Commandos. They have some pretty good abilities behind enemy lines, just like the Chindits, and then they have tough fighters already. And then they can switch out for a Vickers K gun. So slightly different, but they are equipped fairly well. Pretty much all of them could have submachine guns, so being able to creep up, and they're all pretty close for point wise, so you can do a lot of that stuff. As you go throughout the book, you'll have your machine gun teams and all that stuff, but Piat team is a little different. You also have the Blacker Bombard anti-tank team. So that's a little smaller range. Looks like it's just a small mortar, really. One shot HE D6, 24 range.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but like the Piat team, I know Jason uses it a lot.
I love them. I love those things. I mean, you have to get close.
Yeah.
And people underestimate them all the time. To be fair, they're either underestimated or way overestimated.
They're
people
cheap.
will ignore them or fire everything in their army at them. There's no in between usually. And yeah, they're even though I miss quite often because I'm famous for bad luck rules, the times that they do hit, and make that tank explode. It looks super cool because you got to get right up close and personal. Usually, they're running in the middle of the street out from cover, pop up and take that shot, take out the tank. I'm cheering, the enemy's crying, everyone around me is cheering. They carry me on their shoulders out of the store. No, that never happens, but
No.
I'm excited anyway.
I can picture it.
It's just like one of those old sports movies. I'm the champion with that guy. But it is exciting. It's a fun unit. Maybe a bazooka is better, but I like running and getting close.
Yeah.
It fits the feel of my army.
Nice.
And in the new Canadian Airborne list, I can have a unit with up to 4 of them.
Nice.
So look out for that, gentlemen.
Mhm. Yeah, it's some good units. As we keep going forward, we have, of course, the usual, sniper, flamethrower, mortar teams. Those are all pretty generic. Then you start going into artillery, which, again, generic, and I've noticed a lot of it. They actually have a lot of heavy anti-tank guns and whatnot, and some super heavies, which is pretty cool. There is one that kind of stands out, and it's the 3.7-inch QF AA gun.
Oh yeah.
So it's actually a large team. It's a 6-man team, and it's a heavy anti-tank gun, and it's 100 points. Has flak, but it has an improvised roll rule where it can actually attack ground targets. The only thing is when it does, it actually gives itself a pin marker, just to represent like the mechanical strain of the gun upon its crew, right?
Yeah.
So interesting. It's a heavy anti-tank gun, so I mean that's a big shot coming at you. But it's neat that it can play both roles of anti-tank gun and then flak as well, right? So that's a pretty neat one. And it's actually underneath like artillery and not flak, right? Anti-aircraft guns. So, but there's a lot. There's a lot more, like the Bofors and whatnot. But once you start going into the tanks, this is where it really starts getting interesting. Because like we're obviously not going to go through them all here, but there's so many and so many different types and configurations. If you really like the British tanks and whatnot, like this is this is the place to be. They're light tanks. I've noticed multiple machine guns, which is great. Most tanks and stuff will only have like one. Some of the earlier war and lighter tanks, but there's a few here that will actually have like 2 to 3. And if you got that mobile machine gun platform, definitely could do some work, right?
Yeah.
So, and then of course all the tanks, cruisers and crusaders and Cromwells and the old dirty Churchill, Matildas,
Crocodiles.
Yeah, if anything, you just if you want to be creative, you just go with just pick the name of the craziest tank in here. A Challenger, a Comet, Matilda Frog, like whatever, go crazy.
Yeah, there is a lot, and a variety of just guns from you'll get a couple super heavies and heavies and whatnot. You'll get your Shermans in here as well, and your Grants and your Lees. Stuarts, all that stuff. So,
Yeah, all your American tanks.
yeah, in the British service, and then of course you'll have your beloved Firefly as well. So pretty neat. And then tank destroyers as well. You got in here. Any special rules that really stand out into the tanks? Not that I've really kind of come across. There's of course some that are vulnerable just due to the U.S. tanks being used. Catching fire, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Churchills are slow, of course, but as to be noted, considering how big they were. Other than that, yeah, pretty straightforward. Like I said, a lot of different choices for them, and same thing with their armored cars. They've got a lot of armored cars.
Because again, they get the American options too.
Yeah. And I think there was I can't remember which one it was, but there's an armored car that it's armed pretty much like a tank. But you can use some of these armored cars and almost do like a tank shock on artillery and stuff and wreck them. Which is pretty neat. Yeah, the Humber scout car. The neat thing about these is, you can really make those, armored divisions if you wanted for like tank war as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's tons of options in this book for tanks and armored cars and tank destroyers and all that stuff too. And then plus like mobile transports. The Bren carriers, the infamous Bren carriers, and you have the Jeeps as well. But Bren carriers seem to be quite popular, though.
I have 8 of them.
Well,
I
I
said, quite popular.
What did they make? 120,000 during the war?
Oh, so many.
Yeah,
so many of them.
But if you got small units, pack them in those Bren carriers like Jason does, and they're awesome, right? They got turn on the spot, so they can execute a full speed run rate in reverse, and there you go. So 7+ armored carrier,
and they got they can be used for tow if you want to. They have they can be upgraded with an additional LMG, which is flak, which can be in the one list I do for my Canadian Scottish, I have them all mounted in these Bren carriers, so there is zero risk of aircraft when you have, depending on the size of the game, but 7 or 8 Bren carriers, all with flak capable machine guns. There's no way anything's getting to the table. No aircraft's getting there.
You're already open top, so why not, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So DACA.
So
Bren
yeah.
also has the lovely Wasp as well.
Oh,
an
yes.
upgrade for your tanks.
Canadian vehicle.
Get yourself some flamethrower action.
Yeah. You know what this open-topped vehicle needs? A giant tank of fuel inside of it. A little nozzle to shoot it. God. By the way, if you want to look up really cool pictures, there are some super cool pictures of these things ripping around. Videos and pictures of these things ripping around, firing their flamethrowers.
I've seen a couple pictures of him doing jumps off of dunes and stuff too, like
Yeah.
getting full air.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling that the crazy guys are putting these
Oh,
in
probably.
these things. Yeah.
Probably.
Bill doesn't seem right in the head. Let's put him in that.
That's a good one. But yeah, it's like overall, I mean, pretty strong book, I would say. A lot of good units, a lot of good options,
Yeah.
a lot of fun units. So if you're interested in the Brits, definitely take a look at the book. Compared to if you're doing tournaments and trying to make some strong lists, you definitely have a lot of options in there. If you're making historical armies, of course, the whole game is really about that being historical, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of theater selectors, a lot of campaign books out there too. So stuff like
These, I mean, Germany and Great Britain for sure have the most options out of any army.
Yeah.
Not just unit wise, but theater selector wise.
Yeah.
I mean, Germany is the bad guy almost everywhere. So they got theater selectors coming out of Wazoo, but even they don't have theater selector for Pacific, but these guys do.
Yeah.
So really, they're the most diverse. Depending on what you're looking for, you can probably find a list that matches your style of game, and you can make it thematically appropriate.
No, for sure.
Like I like history inspired gaming. Some people go too crazy, the rivet counters and whatnot, which is fine, but I like to go history inspired and hit what I can and still keep it a game. And this, this book is the best for that, absolutely.
No,
And
sure.
of course, it builds on to all the other, what is it, 6 or 7 books that basically add on to this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So and like you guys being quite experienced with playing this army, um, as an example, if you were going to, let's say, a Las Vegas tournament or something, and you know that it's story driven, but yet it's it's still going to be a little bit of competitiveness in this tournament. What would you guys say? What era, I guess, would you kind of build your army from? Would you try to go with the early war, or do you think the mid war is pretty good, or is it more going to go with late?
I think really, if you're go with whatever you want to think is coolest, but if you're trying to do well in a tournament setting, I think the later war has more options and better guns, right?
Yeah.
Like you got the option with the 17-pounder anti-tank gun inside a Sherman, essentially, right? You don't have that early war. Early war, all of your guns are going to have a hard time fighting against anything later war,
Right.
Which makes sense. There's a reason that they stopped using vehicles when they did and moved on to other vehicles is because of those mismatches were going to occur.
Yeah.
So no sense recreating those in those kind of settings,
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
there are a few lists that you could like. It's speaking for myself, like the LRDG SAS lists can still do a lot of damage, even without the armor penetration. You're fast moving.
Yeah.
You've got three or four machine guns per transport or per your armored trucks. You've got veteran tough fighters with pumping out at least 14 shots for a 5-man squad kind of thing. Like, it's you're gonna hold your own for a little bit, until a tiger comes on the board.
Yeah. Yeah.
No doubt.
But yeah, that that's the exception, I think.
Yeah.
LIDG or mid-bore SAS kind of.
No, I hear you. And asking these questions, like, it's still a game. So I mean, you're going to come across those kind of events and or players. So like, I know when I go to Vegas in January, definitely going to be checking out the bolt action scene to see guys lists and kind of talk with people there and whatnot. Just to kind of get the feel and idea of the scene there, because I mean, I've yet to really actually go to an official tournament, because we don't really have anything here, Canada, really, especially on the West Coast. We don't really have much, but hopefully that will change. But to check it out in Vegas, because I know in the States they have tons of events, tons of tournaments. So, and then of course, checking out some of these other podcasts and whatnot too. A lot of them, definitely do these events, and it'll be interesting to see, what units are being used and how guys, kind of are playing their armies, and what's the, I guess, the meta for that area compared to, like, here at home, right? And I think here at home we're pretty good, pretty solid. Nobody's really gone, off the wall kind of thing. But we all have and play some pretty decent armies and have a lot of fun with it. So it's always good to see that. And I think ultimately, and I'm sure you guys probably agree, but we definitely have a lot more of a funner time when you're playing against the same kind of era, or it's a special event, with some kind of theme to it.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah, and that's just how I roll. Is I prefer the themed, history informed or history inspired style gaming, and I like playing through adversity. So I like playing a mismatch sometimes, So I'm all on board with that, but I get that people want to be competitive. That's just not my shtick.
Yeah,
I'm a lot more beer and pretzels than gold medals.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, from what I've seen from a lot of the guys who've taken their tournament experience and either blogged with it or created a video series, a lot of the players in these systems, it looks like they're out there to have a good time. They're out there to win, but they're not they're not the kind of power gamer you might get in a different system.
Yeah,
or a different style of game.
No naming other games.
No naming other games.
And I'll point out too that out of all the other tournaments and stuff that I've seen, in the U.S. and some of the guys I follow, their terrain is like so far beyond other unnamed game systems.
Mm-hmm.
On the average, tournament table.
Yeah.
And also like the scenarios that I've seen, or look themed even in a tournament setting, so they're trying to milk that or not milk that, but trying to get that experience even in a more competitive setting.
Hone it into that And
Yeah.
and and that's totally awesome, and that's totally cool, right? Like, I know in experience with the other games, we've generated our own homegrown missions with a little bit of fluff and storyline to it, and even changed some parameters of the mission, to incorporate certain things so that you're looking at this mission and like, oh, okay, well, it's not just kill points. I have to actually deal with the objectives. You know what I mean? Or the objectives are actually interacting with you in your game instead, right? You know, so the nice thing with bolt action and scenarios, you can create that mission and try it out and try to balance it, and probably can guarantee you anybody playing is going to have a fun time. You know, and there's probably going to be some kind of something is going to happen that everybody's going to be like, okay, that's cool, right? And as an example, when we had our big tank war battle, and Dusty came out and he was crossing the river to get to the objective with his was it your buffaloes, Dusty?
His buffaloes, yeah.
And everybody was like, oh man, that's so awesome, right? Nobody was expecting it because they're like, oh, those aren't tanks, those are just little transporters. But well, not little, but yeah, it's like, wow, Dusty's going after the objective, and now he's a threat, right?
Yeah.
And because he has the ability to do that, whereas you look over at the opponent's side, and it's like just this big gray German steel machine, gun column of just panzers and whatnot, and you're just like, oh boy.
Yeah.
But could have won the game, kind of thing, right? But yeah, overall, it's like I said, it's a game, and it can go either way as long as you're having fun. And I can definitely see the both sides, of the player, I guess you can say. Especially myself being in other systems and with other gaming groups, there's a little bit of the competitive side, and then in other games as well, it's just, I'm just having a lot of fun just playing and going out there and hanging out with the guys and playing and win or lose, right? So, but definitely, getting back on track here, I guess. It is one of those armies that has a lot of options for if you want to, check out an army for a tournament setting, or if you just wanted to play locally and fluffy wise and historical wise. Definitely a great army to look at, and definitely great models to pick from. A lot of plastics. The pewters are pretty nice. They have a lot of characterful miniatures as well. So yeah, I would say probably one of the top armies for that kind of thing. Hey, I'm sure you guys agree with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, nice.
And even just like off the top of your head, you have the airborne, and the airborne have special character models.
Mm-hmm.
The Commandos, and they have special character models, and standard British, so you got, so many model options.
Definitely. And even some of the sets have, different head swaps and stuff too, right? Like the 8th Army group has a whole bunch of different ones too. So, but yeah, overall, great army book, great miniatures, great experience to play them. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Hopefully next year I'll get the 8th Army all painted up. So, but again, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and thanks Jason and Dusty for jumping on again here with me. It's always super enjoyable. Lots of great ideas and thoughts shared, between the three of us. So definitely, well, obviously we'll have you back more and more.
For sure.
And you know, for anybody out there, if you're curious what the guys have, you know, what they run in their armies, I'm sure they would be willing to share, you know, what they run and stuff and ideas. And yeah, just post away in the comments or reach out. We can definitely get you in contact and send you thoughts and whatnot for lists and units. And yeah, thanks for checking us out. You know, of course the usual spiel. You know, check out the Instagram, Facebook, Podbean, all that stuff. And yeah, keep chucking dice and having fun. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Trident Wargaming. Build it, paint it, play it.